today, the DA's case against this year's 30% or more than 30% national electricity hike by NERSA will be heard in the North Gauteng High Court. They've branded this hike as extortionist in nature. The DA says it's unaffordable and an offensive national increase that's on review because people across South Africa can no longer afford the out-of-control prices, the DA says. But the DA is also in charge of a city of Cape Town that has seen a 17% electricity hike, 2% more than last year's 15% increase by NERSA. So I'm looking forward to speaking to John Steenhuisen. They also have a second part to that particular case. They want an order from the High Court to declare the electricity crisis, load shedding, having that declared unconstitutional. John Steenhuisen joins me now on the line. Good morning, John. Know you're busy. You're expected in court this morning, but let's talk about your case against that 30% national electricity hike by NERSA. Many would argue, well, the DA in the city of Cape Town has also increased tariffs to beyond what many people can confirm. Why now you want to challenge NERSA on their 30% hike, John?
Well, remember, Lester, because we have a state monopoly on electricity production in the country, that the NERSA sets the price, and that's what the city has to pay. When they put unreasonable tariff increases up, that is what the purchase price for electricity is. If you actually have a look at the on a city-by-city comparison, and the city put out the tariffs last week, it shows that the Western Cape, the city of Cape Town, has by far the lowest lifeline packages for electricity, up to 15% cheaper than Durban or Johannesburg. So obviously the city is hands are tied when it comes to what we have to pay from the bulk supplier of electricity. And that's one of the reasons why we're in court, because putting electricity up in the manner in which NERSA is doing is putting far too much pressure on households and on being able to ensure that people can keep the lights on at home. And that is also one of the other reasons why we say that it's very, very bad to have a monopoly on electricity generation and supply, as Eskom does have. What we should be doing is opening up the market to greater competition, which will inevitably drive prices down, as it's done in the cell phone industry, for example, and give people choice about who they can use as a service provider. And if they're unhappy with the services or the costing or the structures of one service provider, they can switch over to another one at their benefit. But at the moment, because there's a monopoly and because NERSA has the final say in setting the tariffs, there's very little room for the end user to move, and even for the vendors in between to move, given the fact that they're at the mercy of a monopoly.
I'm interested in part two of your case in the North Gauteng High Court today to declare, getting the court to declare load shedding and the electricity crisis as unconstitutional. It reminds me of the case earlier this year against the Minister of Public Enterprises and Eskom, unions and some political formations getting the court to declare that government must exempt schools, hospitals and other critical state institutions. In principle, good. In practice, unimplementable. Is electricity, or the access to electricity under the Constitution, is it a constitutional basic human right?
Yes, it is a basic human right along with water. We were not part of that case that you referred to, precisely because the way the current network is configured and the fact that Eskom has spent so little money over the last 25 years in upgrading the network and making sure that it is able to keep up with the modern demands of electricity, it became impossible to be able to isolate hospitals and schools, because you would have to then exempt entire grids rather than just isolated houses. Now, I was recently in the Free State in Frankfurt, where the community has now got their own electricity generation supply institution, and they're able to now isolate houses and isolate others from and facilities from load shedding. And that's precisely because they've got the adaptability and they've got a modernized grid. The reality is that Eskom has, for decades now, just simply not spent enough money on grid development, on new power stations, and on keeping up with modern technology. And that's why we've left behind in a terrible situation where the lights are off in our homes and our businesses.
So, John, what would the declaration of load shedding as being unconstitutional, what would it mean for the practicality of fast-tracking the end of load shedding?
Well, it would mean that government would have to put on the table pretty quickly a workable plan that could be monitored to end load shedding. Not the pie-in-the-sky promises that we've been made by Minister Ramaphosa and the President. I mean, remember, this is the President who told us in 2018 that in 6 months we'd forget that shedding ever existed. And Mr. Ramaphosa, who's promised us, a better situation, we're now currently back in stage 6 load shedding. And the situation's not going to get better until there's a workable plan put on the table that involves opening up the grid, opening up the system to entrepreneurs, to private companies, to be able to get in. And what we should be saying is to the private sector and to entrepreneurs, we're in a crisis. We need electricity. This is not a time to cling and protect the monopoly. We want anyone who can produce electricity, anyone who can supply electricity, we'll be prepared to pay it. That's how Thailand and other countries exited similar problems. Theirs was obviously caused by economic growth, rapid economic growth, and the system couldn't keep up with that growth.
John Steenhuisen having to leave it there.